Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to EIG's fifth in a series of webinar focused on simplifying production warehouse operations, melding automation with a single integrated ERP WMS to enable your scalability and growth. We have our two guest panelists, John Cosgrove from Atlantic Handling Systems and Dani Kaplan from SMC Data. We appreciate you taking the time today to join our webinar and help us discuss building an evolving resilient enterprise in the warehouse space. EIG's has over 100 webinars up on our website, and we encourage you to reach out to that. And most importantly, we thank you for joining us, and we hope that your family are healthy and safe. This is the fifth webinar in our series. We'll have one more webinar coming up at the end of March. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the webinar. All the webinars are on our website and are free to observe. You can also see them on YouTube. Again, we look forward to an interactive webinar. Please use Poll EV for the polling questions, as well as use the chat throughout the webinar. My name is Jim Vries, founder and managing partner of Enhance International Group. I will be the host of today's webinar. We also have with us Tim Kirsch, president of Independence Marketing Systems and Solutions, who will be helping us behind the scenes. Thank you, Tim. And also, again, please keep the chat active. It looks like we have a couple notes in the chat. We'll get to you as soon as we can here. And joining us again is Dani and John, and we'll ask each to give a brief introduction about themselves. Dani, an introduction?
Good morning, Dani Kaplan, supply chain software, manufacturing, distribution, and food, include other industries.
And John?
John Cosgrove. I've been in many facets of business, government, and volunteer services over the years. I served 5 consecutive terms as the mayor of Fairlawn, New Jersey, a town with 35,000 people. In business, I served as the president of the Material Handling Equipment Dealers Association, which has about 700 member companies. And I've been a volunteer in my town. I was the fire chief and a 40-year firefighter. Also, I currently serve as the district governor for Rotary in Northern New Jersey.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it for all your service and leadership over the years. Just a little bit of background on myself. I certainly believe that success starts with discovering untapped potential of the employees. I've always focused on how do we get the most out of employees, and it's leadership's responsibility to pull that up and work with the folks at the shop floor level all the way up through the ranks, as well as your suppliers and customers. We do live in an ecosystem. It is in developing others that will help us build the resilient enterprise. With that, again, just a reminder to enter your questions in the chat throughout the webinar and participate in the Poll EV questions throughout. And the instructions are in the chat. With that, we're going to cover the deliverables today. And the first deliverable is focused on the challenges of integrating with automation. Talking about automation is great, but how do you integrate it is one of the biggest challenges. It can be daunting and scary, and we will cover those. John will walk us right through soup to nuts. Optimizing the warehouse facility layout, automation, and then Dani will get us into the production technology and storage and automation also, and then we'll unleash the power of having a unified database and intelligent solution to manage all this additional data that you will be receiving when you automate your facility. And then we'll close it out with some case studies and give you some guidelines on how to sell this internally to your senior leadership. With that, John, background on Atlantic Handling Systems?
Yeah, Atlantic Handling Systems, we're a 20-year-old company, but our employees have been designing, installing, supplying, and servicing material handling systems for well over 45 years. Atlantic Handling Systems, we provide a wide range of products and customers in a wide range of industries. We are a division of Mayberry Material Handling, and which makes us one of the largest material handling and storage companies in the Northeast.
Thanks, John. And Dani, a little bit of background of SMC data.
Dani Kaplan, my background is consulting. For the past 25 years, I represent supply chain software, distribution, manufacturing, food, and other industries. 5 locations nationwide, 200 employees, cover multiple zones, and it's all done in USA, the work.
Thanks, Dani. And a little bit about Enhance International Group. We're a group of 50 consultants, consulting companies, and software as a service providers. And we work to drive strategy, the linkage between strategy and execution. And again, our webinar today is focused on facility automation. And it's only in linking the strategy of doing facility automation down to execution that you will be able to gain and maintain your competitive advantage. It takes a lot of different folks to make that happen. And at EIG, with all of our total community of providers, we will provide that seamlessly into your organization. With that, we'll get into the agenda. We're going to kick it off with challenges in simplifying production, warehouse operations, and covers a lot of statistics there. And then we'll get into optimizing the layout with John leading that effort. And then Dani will cover unleashing the power of a unified database. And then we'll get into the case studies. With that, we're going to start talking about the challenges. And we have a polling question that's it's going to be open throughout this section. And at the end of this section, we will open this up and gain your insights. And again, please do enter into the chat as we go throughout. When we talk about production automation, we're really talking about how do we link everything together. So when we talk about automation, is all those manual processes from inventory into and out of the production warehouse, from suppliers to customers, all the types of information that flows and goods flow throughout the process. So how do you automate that? And listed here are, in case you want to know, these are the companies that are really leading the charge at the Fortune 100 level: Honeywell, Intuitive Surgical, which is surgery using robotics. GE is now back in the game, Emerson and ABB. And then to round out the top 10, you see some others. So there's a lot of information out there and case studies of what these companies have done. They're the best in class companies, but all these ideas can be leveraged at any warehouse throughout. And you should be looking to see what that is that you can use in your facility. Some of the drivers behind the warehouse automation. So there's obviously the labor shortage and shortage of material handlers. Supply chain view automation is certainly a big issue. We get improved retention, and a lot of these supply chain managers acknowledge the benefits of employees upskilling and creating new jobs. So automation doesn't mean eliminating jobs. It actually means creating new jobs for a lot of folks. And since there's a shortage, there's no shortage of opportunity in this area with training and skills training. And just to give an idea of some of the forecasts that I've seen out there, to hit 25 billion and double by 2029. So this is a pretty dynamic area, growing, doubling in less than 4 or 5 years. And then the opportunity, of course, where do we see it? Moving pallets. How do you move the pallets around? How do you move the goods around? Automated guided vehicles are used, AMRs, the conveyors. This is just giving you some stats on AGVs, these automated guided vehicles, that it's pretty underutilized except in e-commerce and automotive, and still it's not at a very high adoption rate. So open it up to questions, Dani and John. What are you seeing out there?
Well, I'm beginning to see, Jim, more and more technology being used. We talk about the labor shortage, and there's an underlying fact to that also. It's employee dedication. It seems like a lot of our customers, they hire people, and the labor shortage continues where people that are even employees, they don't show up. And a lot of this is very similar to what's happened in Europe over the years. Europe, people get like 8 weeks vacation, and so Europe has automated in advance of what we've done. So a lot of that technology is now coming in here, and the big goal of automation is to give you an ROI and be able to keep you productive. So we're working very hard to do that, and a lot of these technologies are beginning, like any technology, are beginning to drop in price. So you're beginning to see them more and more. It's just not the top 100, Fortune 100 companies. Now it's beginning to filter down. And as people more and more use them, of course, the price is going to drop. And we're seeing a lot of automation to try to replace people that they can't find, not to replace employees, but to replace people that they just can't find.
Well said. Well summarized. Thanks, John. Dani, your thoughts?
What we see today with the labor shortage, we have to simplify the operation in the warehouse. So what we give people is a smartphone with the RFID that costs $400 instead of $3,000 gun, require very little training, and that's the issue when the large turnover labor shortage. Another issue is you must have integration between the warehouse and the ERP. Otherwise, you have broken lean and inaccurate inventory. It's a factor that people don't see and don't realize when they look for warehouse software. So it's important to have total integration between the warehouse and the software.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dani. With that, just some more stats on becoming mainstream on what establishes companies' priorities. And this has always been a major issue. Some companies, like we're talking about, some of these big Fortune 500 companies, 1,000 companies, they don't really fear the economic downturn. So they're going to go. And that's their primary reason for adopting. But in this last year or so, 15% are accelerating the adoption because they see this as an opportunity to get ahead. And 26% are postponed or delayed due to economic. So about a quarter of the companies are delaying, and 15% are accelerating. The rest of them are just keeping going on this of this particular group of companies. The next group is companies with $1+ billion in revenue rely on strategic objectives, that imperative to drive this. Another is increasing product demand. So they're automating because otherwise they won't be able to serve their customer. And then the next is they're automating to address global supply chain disruptions, and then tightness in the skilled labor market and reshoring. So I thought this was an interesting thing. We talk about people, it's a skilled issue, when you're out there, why you want to automate, but yet when you look at companies and you ask them, how are they adopting? Why are they adopting? This is what's coming back. So it's kind of an interesting way of looking at things. So the headwinds that a lot of you may be facing with a lack of skilled labor or a lack of labor in your market, but this is what you may be facing.
So Jim, I think this is indicative of what we just spoke about.
Yep.
What's happening here is that the major companies are embracing the automation and technologies, probably because they have the wherewithal to do that. The other companies know that they're going to have to do it, but we're seeing more and more conveyor purchases, but we're not seeing those ASR, the automatic storage and retrieval systems, the way you might think. But as more and more people use the technology, the price of that will be driven down, and the return on investment will be better for a lot of these companies. And as you go right down the line on this, and you see, the global supply chain disruption. We all know that a lot of places they didn't have enough components to complete their products, so they're overbuying on inventory, and they need places to put them, and they need to be able to store them efficiently and pick them and distribute it efficiently.
Great points, John. Dani, your take on this?
What's happening now is because people panicking with the Red Sea situation, they tend to overstock. But we overstock, you have to know what to buy. If product A is 80% and product B is 60%, and product C is 30%. So you have to know what to buy, whom to buy, and when to buy. The cheapest vendor is not the best choice because late delivery causes crash, production disruption, order cancellation, excess inventory, equals a cash flow.
Thanks, Dani. So again, this is just another survey. We don't have to go through all these, but what are those top priorities for automation solutions? Of course, we just went through those. This is just another look. The reshoring, John kind of alluded to, the corporate directive. So this is another angle. So we're just showing you different angles here, but overall, some of the biggest obstacles that we hear about, and I saw in a number of different surveys, was the high cost of implementation. It's scary. It's something different. So even if the ROI is there, there's still a capital expense that has to be allocated for these types of upgrades. And then, of course, the transition expertise and training, there's many folks that are scared to do this automation because of that. And the third reason is scalability. They're worried about scale and so forth. And then you get into these other challenges. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, Jim, this is one of the major reasons for this webinar. A lot of these fears can be overcome when you implement both the ERP with the WMS and automation. Those are the things that will help you to drive and get rid of the high cost of implementation, that the ROI comes back that way. But you can't enter into this. You need the system integration of all of these things to drive it, to get you to the place where Dani talked about, inventory. Now you have a situation where you were not able to get certain products, so you're over purchasing that. You have to have a system with the WMS integrated with the automation that we use to be able to store it and pick it and ship it. And with e-commerce, e-commerce just keeps growing, and it's a whole different way. It's a tsunami, as one of my great friends used to call it. It's a tsunami in the distribution world.
Yeah. Dani, your thoughts?
Because of today's situation is people tend to buy warehouses looking for standalone warehouse software. When they don't realize the integration issue, you end up with two entities that don't communicate well, broken link, which create inventory inaccuracy, either shortage or excess inventory. And you must have a totally integrated system between the warehouse and the main ERP to avoid business disruption.
So I love what you're saying, Dani. Just to summarize, if I could, You know, what folks are spending money on, instead of upgrading their warehouse, they're spending more money on goods. They're spending more money on additional warehouses, creating more complexity that they can't, and they won't be able to find stuff. So stuff will end up become lost, but they never address the whole underlying issue of where is the inventory now that they have, and making sure it's used most efficiently and effectively.
And Jim, to your point, the companies that are doing all of those things, as we all know, their vans are driving around everyone's neighborhood and they're the most successful.
Yes.
So that you know, it just shows it's not going to change, it's not going to go back. You know, it's a driving force in supply chain and distribution.
Absolutely. Great dialogue. And kind of closing out the section, I thought it was nice to, you know, prioritize the automation areas that is what we're seeing through 3 or 4 different surveys that I looked at. And number one, interesting enough, was the ERP WMS, exactly what we are, Dani, and you're selling there. And number 2 was what John's selling. This was not, this is a survey. This isn't us selling, but I thought it was pretty interesting. And then automated storage and retrieval, exactly what you just said, John, was 3. And then the AGVs came, you know, next. And then the automatic identification and data capture that, John, you'll be covering in a few minutes. So this is a great summary of the prioritized areas that companies can look to say, okay, we're going to automate. How are we going to automate? What's the priority? Where should we start? I think is a pretty good list of things. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the system integration between the WMS and the conveyors and sortation systems, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about it later, but, you know, that's what tells you what to put in the box. That's what tells you how much the box weighs. That, you know, we can reject boxes that don't weigh what they should. It's all the integration, and that's what makes it work. And I just saw a question: do you have to implement the WMS and the automation at the same time? You don't have to, but what happens is if you do it and you have the right team developing the architecture of it all, it makes it all work more efficient. But you could have a system currently, a conveyor system, and you can implement the WMS later or at the same, you know, same time.
Yeah. Dani, your thoughts?
It's preferable to have the warehouse software and the ERP software going live at the same time. You eliminate a lot of manual work otherwise, because if it's not connected, you go into the guessing game. Where is the inventory? And especially become acute with multiple warehouses, because one is overstock and one is understock. But if you have it all integrated, the WMS software and the ERP, you know, up to the minute, what's available where, and if one warehouse is short of inventory, you can use a common carrier to ship from the warehouse that has the inventory.
Yeah, I'll just summarize as a warehouse production guy is the question is, do you want to live in Excel and pivot tables, or do you want to be spending all your time working overtime that you don't get paid, doing Excel spreadsheets, joining all this data to try to tell a story of where your inventory is? Or do you want an ERP WMS to do all that for you and provide you live feeds of that information? It's really a decision for you. You know, even if you have Cognos, you know, in an ERP, and you have Cognos for an MRP, you're still having to join all that information to tell the story. Wouldn't you rather have it all on one single platform to help you tell that story? And that's what VAI provides. It's very unusual that it is telling that story, but that's I think what we're trying to impress upon you. Dani, any closing thoughts on that?
It's important. Integration is essential, because I've seen many companies that don't have the integration, standalone warehouse software and standalone ERP, and they became one big nightmare of either overstock and understock. And in today's reality of the Red Sea issue, a good example is in Europe, Volvo and Telsa stop production because they're short of parts.
Yeah.
And the situation become more acute now. So keeping track of inventory is essential.
Absolutely. John, your
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah, Jim, on this slide, we talk about ASRS, we use all these acronyms, but, automated storage and retrieval, just for everyone, if they know, that's a system that was very prevalent in Europe. You need to have, need to have a lot of height in your building, probably just to get an ROI, at least 40 feet. And what that is, oftentimes it's just a crane system that goes down and the software feeds it and lets you know where to put and take out, so you can either extract cases or pallets without having a person on board in a lot of cases. The mobile robots, the AGVs, automated guided vehicles, that's what you see on the Amazon commercials that go around with the shelving unit. And what that does is, instead of the picker going to the product, now you're actually bringing it to the picker, and then they can pack it and ship it out. So those are just some explanations on some of these things that you're seeing now that are becoming more and more prevalent in the supply chain distribution world.
Thanks, John. With that, I'll just go through here and see if let's move a little bit faster now to get to this optimizing facilitated facility layout and optimization, this section that John will lead us through. We're going to start again with a question on what are your challenges in automating your present warehouse, your locations, your production and warehouse areas. I see here leadership priorities, scalability, gaining approval, and where to start as a way to get us started on this. Please do enter your comments in the chat and or into the poll EV, and we'll look at this again at the end of the section. But just to kick us off, like John said, we have a lot of terms here that we're throwing around. We're just going to go a little bit deeper into, you do have your warehouse management system, you have your ERP that's managing all your enterprise resource planning. That goes into your accounting of your company. And then you have your material resource planning of planning all the materials throughout your process of bringing the material into the warehouse, going to production and making your finished goods and then coming out. So to make that happen, you need an order management system. You need a warehouse control system. So you have all this data that's coming in and out. And then you have your transportation management provider. So there's a lot of information coming in and out throughout this process that needs to be managed. And having this on a single platform, which VAI offers, I think is what really makes it work. And then integrating into the warehouse control systems, what John does into the conveyors and into the warehouse daily life is very powerful. Additional thoughts on this slide, John?
I think you explained very well on those, but ASN, for those people who don't know what that is, that's an automatic shipping notice, and a lot of mass merchandisers require you to electronically send that, and there's systems that are available to do that.
And we spent at the last webinar, if you want more information on that, please do reference our previous webinar. We went into detail on ASNs. Dani, your thoughts?
It's important to, as you can see, it's a totally integrated system between the warehouse and the ERP, which one cannot work without the other. So you have to have the total integration to make sure that for smooth operation.
Thanks. And now we're going to get more complicated than this in the next slide. This just wasn't complicated enough. So you have let's just say you're running, you're bringing in materials, you're doing some control, computer numerically controlled machining, you're making some parts, you're doing some milling, and then you're going into assembly. So that may be what your shop floor looks like. But what's happening behind the scenes is a whole lot of things. And the previous slide kind of showed one view of that, but this is just essentially another view of the same types of information. There's all this information coming in and out, planning, outsource, making sure you have the parts when you need them, making sure your lines are always running at full keel, making sure that you're ordering and restocking properly, your production tracking, your S&OP, your supply and operations planning, making sure that that's all going well. There's a lot of synchronization required to drive your production to be efficient, so you have as little downtime as possible. And all this data that's stored is probably in most companies is stored, it's never used. It's never analyzed. It's analyzed periodically, but it's never used to make the operations work better. So taking all this data into your MRP, your management systems, your SCADAs on the shop floor, centralizing all that data and turning it into business intelligence. Analytics is the first step. And then a second step that you hear about on the news and on every day is, how do you turn that data into intelligence using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and get to that digital twin, which is what we promote as part of EIG's offerings. So this is a lot to take in, understand, but it's really this ecosystem that we're trying to create. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, on my part, when you look at the SCADA, what that really is controls. And, you know, when we have a control system, when Dani can feed me, you know, the size of the box, how much the box should weigh, how many items we can get into the box for pickers, that all comes through our controls. And we do that with PLCs, program logic controllers, and it helps us with sortation and so on and so forth. So, you know, the more that you can put in, you know, the more you can put in, the more that Dani can decipher it and send it out to me, and I can then run my my system off of those things.
So it's a feedback loop. The data goes in and then it goes back out to help you run better. Is that right, John?
Exactly, which gives you the highest return on investment, no doubt about it.
Thanks.
Dani, your thoughts?
Another factor is knowing how many trucks you need to ship the inventory and what will fit on each truck. It's a very important factor to have optimizing shipments. Otherwise, you end up with the cost of redundant work, having what you call it, either waste time trying to figure out where to put the inventory and how much will fit on the truck.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dani. You know, you want to fill up the truck. How full was your trucks when they left? Did you meet your customers' demand, or were you short shipping them or delayed shipping them because you had to run another shift in order to meet their demand? So those are all great points, Dani. So thank you for that. With that, we'll just move on to the next slide, which is talking about, okay, let's get down to the factory floor and the warehouse management system controls information. Of course, you have scanned weights, sizes, conveyor speeds, queue times, throughput, all these things to feed. So it kind of goes through this process of sorting, palletizing, kitting, staging, manifesting, and then shipping it out. So sorting as it comes in, palletizing as you know, to segment your materials, and kitting it. There may be production in here somewhere in this. It may be just a transfer warehouse where you're kitting. You stage that, and then you manifest and ship it. So, John, do you want to comment on this slide, or just go right through?
I think we can go right to the next part, and we can start from there. So what we talked about on inbound, you know, we bring pallets in, and sometimes we'll bring them in by conveyor, or sometimes you offload them, and then we put them on a sorter if we have to, And if they have a UCC 128 or a barcode on them, we can then take them through the sorter, and then we can sort them, and then we would palletize them on the floor. Then we would send them out to the picking area and the overstock. So we have pallets above here, and then we have flow racking, you can see underneath that. So there's overstock up on top, and then we have flow rack, and you'll see some AGVs there on the right-hand side, those orange, they're automated guided vehicles, and you also see an order picker there. And what we can do then is we can pick, and then those will be 8 foot deep, usually, the flow racking. And so those pallets, that's pushback racking, so we can go too deep. So one side we're flowing to the front to the picker, and on the other side we're flowing to the back, so that the pallets can be taken down and loaded in the back of the flow rack. So we go to the next slide. So, oftentimes, this example, what we tried to talk about here is two things. One is distribution. The first part is the manufacturing. So sometimes in the manufacturing, we have to kit and put things together. So if you look, the blue racking there, that's what's called flow cell. We can put a cell right in front of the person that has flow rack that comes right down, and then we can build kits. And oftentimes we have those on wheels, so you can wheel it, fill it, wheel it right over to the person who's doing the kitting. And we do that a lot in a lot of manufacturing facilities. Next one, Jim. This is just another example of we're kitting into totes here on the same type flow racking. And it's a flow rack called span track, which is a steel roller or aluminum roller that we would use. And when we do that, it rolls a lot better. Years ago, you would see these little nylon wheels. And today, when you're using corrugated, a lot of the paper that comes in from the Far East, the corrugated, is kind of flimsy, and the cartons would get stuck. So this flows a lot easier on the span track. Just another, after we get done, we stage it. So we get ready to do the picking, and we stage it in the flow rack so people are ready to come down and pick it. This is, after we pick, we'll take a transportation, and we'll take the conveyor and bring it out of picking, and we'll take it to packing. And that just shows some of the conveyor that we've done. In that specific picture, the facility, the floor, it's built in Secaucus, New Jersey, which is kind of swampy. So what we did, instead of hanging from the ceiling, which would put additional weight on the columns, we distributed the weight with the structures that you see in the back there. So we go to the next one, Jim, just to walk through this. So it goes to packing. Girl here is packing. It comes down on a conveyor. She's packaging it, and then she will send it through an automatic tape sealer, which then we also have an in-motion scale. That scale, we can go 60 to 120 feet per minute, and we weigh the package to make sure it weighs what it should. And Dani's WMS will tell us what it should weigh. And we also cube out the boxes before, using a Cubiscan before, and then we can weigh it on the fly. And if it doesn't weigh what it should, we send it down a reject lane where an inspector or a merchandiser will take a look at it and see what's wrong with it. And then what we do is we'll put it through a print and apply application. They're actually printing and applying UCC 128s to the side of the box. A lot of mass merchandisers require that UCC 128 to be in a certain place, and we make sure after they come out of there with a photo eye that the UCC 128 is properly placed and that the barcode's in the right place. And if it doesn't, a photo eye will send it down a reject lane there. So once we put the UCC 128 on it, we will put it on a sorter. This sorter here can do 90-degree diverts, can do 60 to 120 cases per minute. We send it through a scanning tunnel, and it'll tell it which lane to send it down. That's the same one, but we also have on one side, we have 90-degree diverts, and on the other side, we have 30-degree diverts. The 30-degree diverts usually are not being palletized. They're going right out to be on a UPS. And if you look on to the right, you'll see tunnels. That's a scanning tunnel also. So we scan it again there. Send it back to Dani's WMS. Final staging, if we have to palletize it and it's not ready to go out, we'll put it in pallet racking. You see here, this is a warehouse that's 40 foot high, and we'll put it in there. And then what we'll do is bring it back out, put it through the sorter, and ship it out. So when we get to shipping, which is the next picture, this happens to be a 40-foot extendable belt conveyor that will go into a truck. So if we're loading cases, we'll bring this right off the sorter and it'll load right onto here. We can transverse this over 3 dock doors. It has headlights on it. It has an emergency stop in case someone hits it. It hits someone inside, it'll stop. But we can do that with either, this is called a max reach, or a lot of times you see extendable conveyors that go into a truck 40, 45 foot long. Sometimes they're powered and sometimes they're manual, gravity. So just to show you a design that's used in a lot of cases now, once something comes out of manufacturing and it's stored in that flow rack that we show you, those are flow racks that are along a conveyor line, a tri-width conveyor with 2 gravity sections on each side and a power one down the middle. What that does is it allows the pickers to pick a zone on the gravity. It's a pick and pass. They'll put a generic barcode or some kind of license plate on the box, and we'll scan that, and then we'll pass it down from zone to zone. And when they scan the pick ticket that's in there, it'll tell them whether there's a pick in their zone, and if it's done, they'll put it on the power conveyor and we'll send it out. In those little red circles there, that's a spiral conveyor because these are 3-level high, so we're optimizing the space within the warehouse. So we're using automation to increase our throughput. The controls that we use help us do that, and Dani's WMS gives us all the intelligence we need to do that correctly. And we also slot the SKUs within the pick modules by using the WMS. So we know where to put things. It's what Dani talked about before. You have to know where to put the inventory and to become more efficient, especially today, because a lot of companies are buying a lot of inventory because of the supply chain problems that they've had. So that's pretty much that. This just shows what the warehouse will look like. You know, you see it, the green with arms, those are palletizers. They take boxes off. That's a technology that automates. It's been around for a very long time. It's tried and true, and a lot of people use palletizers to build pallets after the cases have been processed. If you're shipping pallets out, if you're just shipping cases, we send it straight through, goes to the sorter. The sorter will then divert it, and it'll go onto the truck. Whether you might be loading UPS, FedEx, United States Postal, whatever it might be, and we can do that with other items like clothing, Jiffy bags, whatever it might be. We have the capability to do those things. So it's just a little bit of an idea to run you through, you know, what an operation would look like to give you more automation and give you a return on investment.
And just to highlight another EIG partner, Creatosoft can help you build that simulation, or you can use their software directly yourselves to build a simulation of what that could look like for your facility. With that, John, you want to kick us off on our summary here?
Sure. You know, what we're talking about to try to improve your return on investment is high density space utilization, which, you know, that can be achieved a lot of different ways. It can be achieved when we talked about ASRS automation. You can do it with different style fork trucks. You know, there are all different types of fork trucks. You know, there are narrow aisle, very narrow aisle, order pickers, so on and so forth. One of the things you have to watch out for today is the long lead time on all those items. You know, some like narrow aisle trucks are out a year and a half on delivery. So you don't want to build a warehouse currently for that, and you can't get trucks. Another thing we talk about is order integrity. You know, when we do this, you know, the whole idea behind this is to bring the product to, you know, make it easy for the picker. They don't have to serpentine through aisles manually looking for product, which sometimes screws up the order integrity. This way, when they come into that pick module, it just feeds them and they know it's right in front of them. We can, on these pick modules, we can automate them with pick to light. We can use voice pick. You know, there's so many different things we can do to increase your productivity. So doing that. And if we use those things, you know, it increases order accuracy, and it also increases the picks per hour. And there is software with all those things that will tell you, you can see who your best pickers are and who's doing the best and turning out the most product and being the most efficient when you do that.
Dani?
It's important to have ERP and WS goes hand by hand. So it's very important to have them both integrated to each other to avoid broken link and excess inventory. The main thing is first implementation. By assigning each department an expert and having a test environment, you can run your business without any disruption and the whole thing done in the behind the scene. And you don't have the issue of having to have parallel run and things like that.
Thanks, Dani. And just closing it out, EIG offers all the integration that's required. A lot of this will take change management. It may take additional resources or just project management. We have those resources if it's beyond what John and Dani shared. We also have different digitalization types of AI scientists to take your data to that next level once it's all centralized. And Cognos is used with VAI. Once that's, and you want to go to the next level, we have providers to help automate even to a greater extent. So we're here to help you with all your needs all the way through the process. With that, we're going to go back to the survey, and we see again, what are the challenges automating? Again, the approval, where to start, all really good things. Thanks for inputting there. With that, Dan is going to take us through unleashing the power of a unified database.
It's important to have a unified database so you don't have broken links. It's in the case of M&A, you have, sometimes you end up with multiple ERP software. We translated one warehouse has too much inventory and a second warehouse has too little inventory. So with a broken link create inaccurate inventory. When the warehouse is low on inventory, buys more inventory, while the warehouse has excess inventory, is stuck with the inventory, while it could be transferred to one to another or used with a common carrier. Lack of support is a big issue also. You have to make sure that when you get software, that you have a good support line. The best car in the world, if it breaks on the highway and there is no support, a mechanic will not come to see you are stuck in the highway. The same thing with support. You must have good support in order to know if something goes wrong, so you get support right away. This is a total view of the whole system. On the left side, analytic shows you what to buy, when to buy, how much to buy, and whom to buy. And accounting, order processing, sales, manufacturing, warehouse, CRM, e-commerce. As you can see, it's all in one-stop shopping, so you don't have to have multiple software and trying to integrate them together, resulting in broken links. It's a single data depository for manufacturing, distribution, food, and other industries in the mid-market. That's another issue. You have to have a single database. So you limit the integration there but having multiple software like a warehouse software standalone or CRM standalone, you end up with broken link and extra use of real time is very important. One client we have has 100 locations nationwide that real time support with real time. And the warehouse management is another issue that's very important to have integrated the whole system. It's all one-stop shopping. That's the picture of the warehouse, fully automated warehouse from the distribution, logistics, real-time analytic, the Cognos tells you, that's IBM software, financials, and portal. People can order on the smartphone, update the host in real-time mode. It's a single integration between the warehouse and the ERP system, one-stop shopping.
Thanks, Dani. Great overview of a very consolidated, unified database. With that, we're going to go into the case studies, and I think John's going to kick us off here with his case study. John?
Okay, what we're showing here is an automotive supplier, and what happens is they pick, and there's a lot of different SKUs, of course, automotive. So when they deliver these, they use this system of the steel rollers I talked about before, but they actually pick into reusable totes. So, you know, their order integrity is a lot different in a lot of different things. So when we do that, you can see in these pictures, what we do is we put them on these flow racks, and they actually pick from the totes. But it's very important, once again, the integration part of this with the WMS, because all of these totes are going to have, you know, different configurations all the time, it seems like. So, you know, you're not getting a lot of the same picks. It's all different, you know, whether it's a Ford or a Chevy or whatever those parts are. So that's what they do. They use those. So, you know, they pick about 6,500 parts every day. They pick, they assemble, they manufacture, they do all different things. They do some kitting. So it's not a one easy type distribution. So, you know, the goal was to modify a carton flow to improve flexibility and safety, because they had people wandering all around picking totes with fork trucks going down aisles. So what they did was they went to this system. We put in these flow racks, and it seems to be working a lot better. The people before they were going into the lane to try to pull totes out because they didn't flow correctly before we put in this type roller that we put in. Okay. You know, they use what they call heavy duty span track because sometimes the weight can be hard. They had 652 steel roller lanes across 38 bays of flow rack, and we customized it. The knuckles, what the knuckles refer to is when the flow rack comes down, it actually knuckles down so they can see what's in the tote. The other way, they would have to take the tote out and look at it. They can make sure they have what they need when they scan it with the gun. And it proved for make sure that all the orders are shipped in a timely manner now. Big ROIs where there's no maintenance and repair on the rollers. We increased their productivity by 40%. It's easy to adapt different products, weight and size. And we reduced their overtime by 10% and increased employee satisfaction. And it had an ROI in less than 1 year on this specific project. Just shows some more pictures of it. You can see some pickers there, but that's essentially what's happening. We streamlined the operation for them, and we increased their efficiency.
Thanks, John. Excellent overview. Great case study. Dani?
That's a case study of a manufacturer with a distributor and has multiple ERP systems, which created integration issues, inaccurate inventory, excess labor efforts, and inaccurate inventory. The result is he has one system now, and that's the solution that you got there with a single database that has manufacturing and distribution part of the system with financial and warehouse and analytic. It's create a whole different environment when you have multi-integrated system rather than few system trying to put them together. That's another case study of a worldwide manufacturer robotic distributor. So they have 3 systems for distribution manufacturing, and they could not support it. They created with inventory dropping down to 90%, raw material and finished good, which is really a bad situation. Having one system, they're up to 99.5 accuracy, and location worldwide went live without a hitch. The video's on my website, you can see.
Excellent.
That's a summary of multiple companies. The first one is 10 years ago, was $100 million, now they're $1 billion. Black River used headset for voice pick because products does not have a barcode. Pick up 500 tomatoes, stars, vegetables. ADC has multiple systems for manufacturing distribution, and that's the result of the Roman was a worldwide manufacturer, and Dorsey is a warehouse issue. And as you can see, the return on investment is quite high by having integrated manufacturing, distribution, and food under one umbrella with the warehouse.
Dani, I love these examples. Fantastic examples of it can be done. So not just the big guys can do it. There's lots of ROI out there sitting on there. So we put together this chart, you know, on, well, where do people, how do companies justify? And some of the things that came out on top were safety. And again, thanks for Vecna Robotics for their data. But safety costs, training costs, turnover, labor availability, inflation, of course, tracking that as a percentage of your costs as it's going up. Everything is changing. So that's going to affect your models, lost productivity and understaffing. So there's a myriad of ways and factors that you need to take into account. Of course, work with your finance team to build these models. And the next slide here is some of the impacts by building these models. Dani and John will take us through what they've been seeing out there. John, on the warehouse automation impacts?
Yeah, you talk about workforce efficiency. And, one of the things I see throughout the industry now, and a lot of my customers constantly comment, is about a generation of young people who are living in their parents' basement playing video games instead of taking these jobs. And it's hard because they're not reliable. So enabling workforce efficiency, automation helps to do that. So it's something that's very important. And until we can solve that, it's going to be a major player within the supply chain distribution part. Of course, labor cost is always high. As one of my customers once said to me, I don't have to pay health insurance on a conveyor system. So, that's a big savings there, that we can save there, and productivity, accuracy. If your customers, especially today, some of the big companies are driving this, they can deliver to you in one day and they get you what you need. So in order to compete with that, you have to have accuracy throughout your warehouse. And the throughput and space utilization, that's what our next webinar we're going to talk about, using the existing space you have, because a lot of our clients today, they might have had a 10-year lease. They go to renew their lease and they look at the building they're in, and they realize it's not big enough for them, then they find out what the cost of real estate is today, and they're in sticker shock. So, we need to do more with what they have, as far as maybe we can keep them in a smaller building, but be more productive and have some more high density storage.
Thanks, John. Dani?
One of the big issues is wrong shipment. You ship it wrong, you get chargeback. Chargeback is a good way for the mass merchandise to increase their profitability and lower your profitability. Having a better inventory control with warehouse and inventory WMS together, ERP and WMS, you create a better inventory control. You track the material better, low cost of shipping it, and the integration. You don't have the issue of broken links and inaccurate inventory. And if you have multiple locations, if one warehouse is overstock and other stock, either transfer it over, use a common carrier. In the world of M&A, you often end up with multiple ERP, which create integration issue, excess user efforts, and one warehouse overstock, other one is understock. So having a one-stop shopping solves headaches and improve profitability.
Thanks, Dani and John. Really great points here. There's so many salient best practices here. I just point out on reduced labor costs that John mentioned, to add in not just, as he said, the hourly rate, but all the benefits. You usually take their salary, multiply it by at least 1.5 to take into account that cost, because there are other costs besides just the salary. And then as Dan, just one point to point out on Danley's is that seamless integration of knowing, a lot of inventory is lost, a lot of it's reordered and expedited, only to find out later it was in the warehouse somewhere. And there's lost production, late deliveries. The cost is enormous because you don't have it all in a single system. So having that integration, that seamless integration, is so important. So it shouldn't be that hard to justify these technologies and implement them into your areas. And of course, we will help out with that if that's what's needed to justify your ROI to your senior leadership. With that, we're going to close out the webinar and thank Dani and John for their insights. Again, the deliverables, hopefully we achieved the deliverables set out in this webinar, and we look forward to you joining us in March, where, as John mentioned earlier, we'll be looking at those vertical storage lifts, something that Europe's been doing for quite a while, and it's a great way to increase your capacity with a limited footprint. So the date for that will be coming out soon. Again, thank you for joining us in the webinar today. We appreciate your feedback, your thoughts, your ideas. Please do follow up with John, Dani, or myself with any of your questions. We'd be more than happy to follow up with you. With that, John, your closing comments?
Yeah, I just want to thank you and Dani. I think this was a good discussion, and look, automation is the future. It's right around the corner for a lot of companies that haven't embraced it yet. You're not going to be the beta site in a lot of cases because it's out there, and with artificial intelligence coming around the corner, there's a lot of I think there's a lot of optimism within the industry, and we can continue to reach new heights if we continue with technology and automation. And Atlantic Handling Systems, we're ready, we're available. Any questions you might have, we will be glad to answer, or come see you and talk about the future of your company, your supply chain and distribution problems.
Dani? Thanks, John.
I want to thank everybody for attending the webinar, and integration, having automation becoming crucial today, especially with today's reality of new inventory supply, when companies are overstocking, afraid of when the next shipment will come. So having accurate system, knowing what to buy, when to buy, how much to buy, and whom to buy, it's very important.
Thanks, Dani. And thanks again, John. And thank you all for joining us today and taking the time out of your busy schedule. You know, we're in this VUCA world, this volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. It's not getting any better, unfortunately. And having automation is almost a requirement of survival. And as this technology moves from the Fortune 100 and the Fortune 1000 and become cheaper and cheaper, as John and Dani mentioned, you know, you're going to need to get on this bandwagon of automation, and it's going to help you. It's going to help you run your operations better. You're going to know better what's going on, and you're going to sleep better at night. At the end of the day, we want you to all sleep better at night. That's what it's all about. So with that, we'll close out the webinar, and thanks everyone, and have a great day.